and welcome to our viewers on Facebook Live and on YouTube. Welcome Instagram people, and of course our Zoom regulars as well. So it's an intriguing title. The title of today's discussion is The Day with No Name and No Date. And I wanted to leave it a little bit vague, and I did that deliberately, my friends, because the holiday that we are going to be discussing tonight is probably one of the most mysterious and unusual holidays that exists in the entire Jewish calendar. Nothing is more vague, blurry than the day we're going to describe. And I'm not joking when I say that what we're going to discuss this evening, begin discussing with a lot to say, is really a very unusual day in the Jewish calendar, in that it has no name and it has no date. It kind of exists in this ethereal world that we're going to get in this evening. The discussion, of course, is, well, before I even tell you, let me keep the mystery going for just a couple more moments. Every Jewish holiday, every day of importance in the Jewish calendar has a name and it has a date. Whether that name and date are found in the Torah, or whether the rabbis themselves created this particular day, or a particular day, and gave it a name and a date. This day, however, is very, very different. What we're going to describe this evening, my friends, is this unusual, mysterious holiday that, if you look in the Torah, it is the only holiday, only day in the Jewish calendar that is not given a name, it's not given a date, and we're not even told what happened on it, although we know very well what happened on this day. And the day, of course, is Shavuot. Shavuot is the day that we, the Jewish people, have celebrated for 3,333 years as the giving of the Torah. Such an important day. I mean, can you think of one event in Jewish history, my friends, that is more important and more special to our people and more memorable and more impactful than the giving of the Torah? And yet, if you open your Chumash, you open your Bible, your Torah, it doesn't tell us that the day we celebrate as Kabbalat Torah, the giving of the Torah, ever happened in terms of us getting the Torah. I mean, the giving of the Torah is described to us in the book of Exodus chapter 20, in the parasha of Yitro, and a lot of great detail is given to us about the giving of the Torah. But we're not told over there or anywhere else in the Torah the date that event happened on. Actually, we're not even told in the Torah the name of the holiday that we celebrate and commemorate and in some senses relive the giving of the Torah. It's called Shavuot. You see, there's a date and a name for Pesach, 15th of Nisan. Pesach, very descriptive. On Pesach, God jumped over Pasach, the homes of the Jewish people, in order to kill the firstborn of Egypt. We survived that, and we got to leave the next day. Pretty descriptive when it comes to the holiday that is Passover, Pesach. We also know about Sukkot. We're given the date of Sukkot. We know what happened on it. We know that the Jewish people are celebrating the booths, the huts that we lived in for 40 years in the desert. So the name itself describes things to us. We are given the date in the Torah. It appears in the middle of the month of Tishrei. Fantastic. Rosh Hashanah, the head of the new year. We're told the date. It is the first day of the 7th month, that is Tishrei, and it is one of the 4 new years that we are given. Fantastic. Yom Kippur, also very descriptive, a day of kapara, a day of atonement, the day that all of our sins, when we don't eat don't drink, don't bathe, don't anoint ourselves, don't wear leather shoes. And there we're told to fast for 25 hours. Fantastic. I know what I'm doing it. I know it's the 10th of Tishrei, 10 days after Rosh Hashanah. I know when, I know why, I know what's happening on it. So much is... And then even the rabbinic holidays, Purim and Chanukah. Chanukah, we rededicate the temple after the Assyrian Greeks came in and the Maccabees routed them out, and we light the menorah. And Purim, that's the lottery, the date that Haman chose to kill the Jewish people, and we survive that day and we celebrate on it. And then comes along this really weird holiday that we're all told about in school, hopefully, called Shavuot. What happens on it? We're not told. There is no description, pretty much, except a little agricultural description in the Torah. But even the name itself, Shavuot, doesn't tell me anything. Shavuot means weeks. Weeks. Why? Because we count 7 weeks from Pesach, from the second day of Pesach, which for us in the diaspora is the second Seder night. For the Jews in the land of Israel, it's from the first day of Chol HaMoed, after their one night of Seder. We count 49 days, and on the 50th, that Shavuot, which we're told by rabbis, celebrates the giving of the Torah, but the Torah itself says nothing about it. So there's no name to describe the holiday. I mean, weeks. That's not describing the holiday. That's describing the 7 weeks leading up to, but not including that holiday. Because it's actually on the 50th day, after the 7 weeks have completed. And we have no date written in the Torah of this holiday. We only know when to celebrate it because we're counting 49 days from the second day of Pesach to reach Shavuot. What is all this intrigue? Why can't the Torah, my friends, just tell us what happened on Shavuot? And you know what? Give it a good name. Describe it in some way. Call it Zman Matan Toratenu. I mean, that's how the rabbis describe it. The Torah itself doesn't describe it that way. Instead, it's called Atzeret, stop. You were counting 49 days. You were counting from Purim, from Pesach to Shavuot, to the giving of the Torah. Stop. No more counting. Why? Weeks. The week's holiday is here. What do you mean the week's holiday? They're done. Why are we shrouding this holiday in mystery? My friends, the answer to this question is going to reveal to us so much, not just about the weeks leading up to this holiday called Shavuot, not only about what happened on it, but what it means to us today, 3,330 years later. Because Shavuot has inside it everything you need to know about the Torah, our connection to the Torah, the giving of the Torah, and our dedication to it as well. Because Shavuot, in the end, is the holiday that we use to celebrate the giving of the Torah. Not that you would know that if you read through the Bible. If you read through the Torah and only had the Torah, which thank God we don't have. We have an oral Torah, Torah Sheba'al Peh, that describes exactly what is happening in the Torah Bechtav, the written Torah. Friends, Shavuot is the perfect name to describe the holiday we are talking about tonight. And the fact that it has no given name to describe itself, the fact that it has no object as well, tells us so much. You see, on Rosh Hashanah, we have a shofar. On Sukkot, we have the sukkah, the lulav, the etrog. On Pesach, oh my goodness, it's all about the objects. We have the matzah, which is a Torah mitzvah, the Haggadah that we read from. We have the 4 cups of wine. We have the maror. We have the choroset. We have the karapas. We have our grandparents who came to sit down at our Pesach Seder table. We have the kara, the plate that we all sit around. So many objects. Even Purim has the graga, right? And the menorah on Chanukah. So every holiday has a date, has a name, and has an object of mitzvah or focus that is connected to that holiday. And Purim we even have, of course, the Megillah. We read the Megillah itself. And a Shavuot, nothing, no object. Okay, some people have accustomed to eat cheesecake. I'll be honest with you. You have fulfilled your obligations of Shavuot if you don't have a single bite of cheesecake. It may take away from the pleasure of Shavuot, but you don't need cheesecake. Okay, some people stay up all night learning Torah. I do. I teach classes the entire night, but I'll let a little secret. Let's say you didn't, my friends, stay up all night to study Torah. You've still fulfilled your obligation of Shavuot. No name, no date, no mitzvah object. What, my friends, is going on with this mysterious holiday? And why are we discussing it now, near the beginning of the Omer counting? Wouldn't this be a better class once we actually get closer to Shavuot? Let me explain and unravel everything. Shavuot is all about the giving of the Torah. The Torah was given to the Jewish people as a very, very special and powerful gift. In it is everything we need to know about God, our obligations towards God, our mitzvah to God, our mitzvah to each other. But you know what? The Torah is sublime. The Torah cannot be fully understood by mortals like us. We can enjoy it, we can learn it and study it, and we get some morsels of understanding. But in the end, the Torah is the understanding of God. It describes God's mind, say the rabbis. A full understanding of Torah, of God's ways, are beyond human intelligence. Even Moshe Rabbeinu, we're told, who was the greatest prophet that ever lived, who was the one who went to Shemayim, went up on the mountain and brought the Torah down to us. Even he didn't understand every aspect of God and his Torah. And Moshe Rabbeinu, the Torah is called in his name. The Torah is called Torah Moshe, the 5 books of Moses. And yet, there were parts of it, parts of God's relationship to the world that Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't even fathom. We know there are 50 levels, important number, of understanding of the Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu got to 49th level. Even Moshe Rabbeinu, says the Ramban, couldn't hit the 50th. No mortal is able to reach that level. No one in this world on Olam Hazeh. So the Torah, my friends, is big. It's like really, really big. And we will learn it as 5-year-olds, and we learn it as 20-year-olds, and we learn it as 49-year-olds, and 50, and 60, 70, 80, 90. And you could be the greatest Torah scholar that ever lived. You're never going to fully understand everything, because the Torah comes from a different world. It comes from the spiritual realm. It's clothed in a physical garb, a piece of parchment with words you can study and enjoy and understand. And there are Shivim Panim, there are 70 facets to every piece of Torah. But you know what? The Torah is bigger than we realize. It's so big that not one day can contain it. Let's say the Torah had a date. Let's say the Torah had a name for the giving of the Torah. What would you think? You would think that the Torah is only for that date, and for those people who relate to that one name. Think of Pesach and Matzah. Matzah is the Torah mitzvah of Pesach, but only Pesach. Do you eat matzah a week later? No, unless you want a stomachache. Do you eat it 3 months later? I mean, you can, but you're not getting a mitzvah. You see, had the Torah, my friends, given us a date for the giving of the Torah, Shavuot, you might have thought, understandably, but incorrectly, that is the only date that you get to do the mitzvah of learning Torah. What a tragic mistake that would have been. And let's say the giving of the Torah had a name in the Torah itself. You would think, there's only one thing I need to get out of the holiday, this one aspect. And so what does the Torah do? It leaves it completely open. The Torah tells us nothing about relating the day and the event. It describes the day. It describes the event, but it never puts those two together. It is a nameless and dateless Jewish holiday. Why? Because the Torah, my friends, is so great, it cannot be contained within one day. It cannot be contained in one day. The Torah was given to all the Jewish people over the entire Jewish world for all of Jewish history. It's bigger than one date. It's bigger than one name. All the Torah can do is say count. And it's called Shavuot, as if to say it's all about the lead up, the process of getting there, but there itself, you're never there. As someone once wise said, where is there? Where is there? I mean, where is there? I don't know. All I know is it's not here. That's Shavuot. Shavuot, you're never fully there. You've never reached Matan Torah, because giving of the Torah wasn't a one-off event. It wasn't a yearly event. It's an everyday event. And that's why Shavuot is one of the only holidays, if not the only holiday, that has no mitzvah object. You see, you can focus everything you need to know about Rosh Hashanah into that shofar. So much of who we are on Pesach is matzah. So much of who we are on Sukkot is the sukkah. But my friends, when it comes to Shavuot, the giving of the Torah, the most precious possession that we have, you can't limit that to one object. No one object except the Torah itself, that we have the custom to stay up all night and learn, can be understood and appreciated and contained within that one thing. Torah is big, my friends. It's the greatest gift that was ever given to the Jewish people. And think about your birthday. You have a birth date, we all do, and we look forward to our birthday when all our friends are finally going to comment on our Facebook status after 1 year of being silent. And you know what? We look forward to it. And maybe we count down to that moment. But when the day has come and gone, it's finished. And we have to wait another 365 days to get to our next birthday. Shavuot has no date. I mean, it falls on a specific day, but no date is recorded in the Torah to describe it. Because if it does, it's limited to that one day, that one reality. You've missed the entire point of what the Torah really, my friends, is all about. I'll tell you something even crazier. I want you to try to understand this. We've said the Torah is bigger than any one day. It's so universal and so historical, past, present, future, that one day cannot contain it. One object cannot contain the Torah either. And therefore there's no mitzvah object on the day. And there's no date, no name, no object. It's just there, hanging somewhere, waiting for us to receive the Torah whenever we do receive the Torah. I'll tell you a very wild idea. And this you can actually see very clearly in the Torah. Where was the original Torah of Moshe Rabbeinu stored? There was the original Torah that Moshe Rabbeinu wrote. Some say completely at Mount Sinai. Some say over the years from Mount Sinai and onwards. Where was that Torah stored? It was stored in the Aron, the Ark, as in Raiders of the Lost Ark, which if you're over a certain age, you'll appreciate that reference. If not, not. The Aron, what was the Aron? The Aron was a box made of wood. And that box of wood was put inside another box that was made of gold. And then inside that box was another gold box. So it was gold, wood, and gold. Why those three layers is a very interesting question, and we can talk about that another time. It's fascinating of why the wood was put inside in between the two gold. But whatever it was, that's where the first ever Torah of Moshe Rabbeinu was kept. And of course, the Luchot, the Ten Commandments, the two tablets that the Ten Commandments were etched into, were kept there as well. And whenever the Jewish people traveled, the Kohanim would lift it up by its button, by the poles, and actually it was so precious, so holy, that the Kohanim, the priests, didn't carry it. It carried them. That is the power, my friends, of the ark that kept and carried the first ever Torah. Now, when it wasn't being carried from destination to destination, it was kept in the Kodesh Kodashim, the Holy of Holies, which was in the Mishkan, the tabernacle, surrounded by wooden krashim, wooden planks of wood, and they surrounded it, and around that there was a curtain, and there was a curtain separating, and nobody was allowed inside that curtain except the high priest on the holiest day, on Yom Kippur, where he said the holiest name of God to achieve atonement on Yom Kippur. There's something very unusual about this box, and it relates to this. I hope you appreciate this. It's a very deep idea. This box had a certain measurement to it, whatever it was. I think it was 5 amot, 5 handbreadths or so wide, if I remember correctly. And it was put inside a room, this room inside the Holy of Holies, which had walls on the side. The measurement from the side of the Aron, this ark, was 5 amot to the wall. On the left-hand side of the ark, the distance from the left-hand side to the wall was also 5 amot. So we have 5 amot of empty space, 5 amot of empty space, which is about, I don't know, let's say 2 feet per amma, about 10 feet, 7 to 10 feet or so. And then the ark was put in between. So you had 5 of empty space, ark, and then 5 of empty space. And yet, when they measured across inside that gap, there were only 10 amot. But how could that be? Because there were 5 amot of empty space, 5 amot of empty space, and the ark itself was in between. So it should definitely be more than 10 amot. Do you know what this tells us? Says Rashi and the other commentators. That the ark that contained the Torah and the Luchot itself, when it was placed inside the Holy of Holies, took no space at all. The measurement from wall to wall was 10 amot, and that is the distance of 2 5s on each side of the ark. That means when you measure from wall to wall, you should have 10 amot and the size of the ark. But the ark didn't even take physical space in the Holy of Holies, my friends. Let's recap, and I'm going to add one more piece to this. The Torah has no date given the Torah for its giving. It's not given a name, it's given the name weeks, which only talks about the 7 weeks that precede, that we prepare for the giving of the Torah, which is why we are here right now, preparing for Shavuot for 49 days. This is a very exciting, happy time of the Jewish calendar as we prepare for the giving of the Torah. Okay, something bad happened to Rabbi Akiva and his students, and we're going to talk about that, but that's a layer we're going to add on later. The 49 days are really happy, exciting days. The Torah cannot be contained within one day, within one date, within one name, within one object. Even when it was inside the Ark of the Covenant, it couldn't even, my friends, be contained within one physical space. As far as measurements were concerned, the Ark of the Covenant didn't even exist and fill any space in this world. It's as though it wasn't even there. That, my friends, is the secret of Shavuot. It can't have a name or a date because Torah is greater than any one time, place, event. And that's why the Torah was given not only outside of Israel, but in the desert, the Mount Sinai desert. Let me ask you, does anyone know where Mount Sinai is? This amazing mountain that the Torah was given to our ancestors? Shouldn't that mountain be the most important mountain in Jewish history? Does anyone know where it is? There's theories, there's videos online of people think they found it. You know what? Even if they found the original mountain the Torah was given on, we wouldn't care. We just don't care. It doesn't bother us. Now we do care about the mountain in Jerusalem. That, my friends, that interests us. The mountain in Jerusalem that the temple was built on, that we built, that's an important mountain. But Mount Sinai, no, why not? And why was the Torah given in a desert? Because the desert is ownerless. No one comes along and says, this little area of the desert, this belongs to me. This is important. No one cares about it. Not only that, even if we knew where the mountain was, it wouldn't bother us. Because the Torah isn't even about the location it was given in. It's an idea. It's a holy object of learning that is the chiyut, that is the life of the Jewish people for the past nearly 3,500 years. And so where the Torah was given, I don't care. Where Mount Sinai is, a desert, ownerless, open. No one comes along and claims, oh, that piece of desert's mine. It is where it is. So the Torah can't even be captured and held in one place. That, my friends, is the secret of where we are right now. We are traveling through a 49-day period, 7 weeks, Shavuot. And what we are meant to be doing now is anticipating and getting excited and therefore counting every single day in preparation for the giving of the Torah. Giving the Torah, right? Let's get to Torah giving day. No, I can't even call it Torah giving day. The Torah doesn't, because even that, my friends, is not going to suffice in appreciating what a big event it was. And so, my friends, that is the secret to where we are right now and where we're going. We're going to a place, my friends, that is above time and space. Because when you live in this world, there's two things you cannot escape. Time and space. Makom, space, and zman, time. We're always captured and held within it. Do you know who's not contained in time or space? God. And you know what is never contained within time and space? The Torah. And that, we're told, is God's understanding and explanation of this world. If you will, it's an understanding of God's neshama, God's soul. That's what the Gemara tells us. And therefore the Torah itself is how we, the Jewish people, connect and understand our duties and understand God himself. No name, no date, nothing can capture that one moment. We'll celebrate it. We'll celebrate the day itself and we'll learn Torah. But there's not too much else we can do on that day to really capture the essence of how epic the Torah is and the giving of the Torah is as well. I have a lot more to say. We've run out of time. We're going to revisit this Shavuot idea in the future because there's one other aspect we didn't describe today, and that is the agricultural component that the Torah does describe Shavuot as, having this agricultural season connected to it. So Shavuot in the Torah is discussed agriculturally. Now there's a very, very powerful piece of Torah that I'll be sharing in the coming weeks to help us understand why the giving of the Torah is only described and explained through flowers and fruits and vegetables. That, God willing, we will come to. Thank you all for joining. I'll see you all tomorrow. Those will be available at 12 p.m. for our description and our discussion of getting better at being you. And tomorrow's discussion is going to be things you should not be guilty about. I'll see you all tomorrow. Thanks for joining. Have a great day.